Alright guys, so here's the review of the Seestern Doxa SUB 300 Homage. This is the V3, so I previously checked out the V1, didn't bother with the V2, but when they released the V3 I thought I'd better check it out, see how it compares. So I'm going to be doing a little comparison between the V1 that I've already got, see if it's worth picking up over the other two versions, and talk about some of the differences. So, been trying it out for a while, full disclosure, got the watch for free. Don't have to send it back, but you know the score. It's not going to change the way I do my reviews, going to keep it 100% honest all the time, no matter what. So, before we dive in, I've got a discount code for this as well. So if you use the discount code HWR, you'll get $20 off on a $200 spend. That applies to anything on the store. So if you don't want this watch, you can pick up something else, and you still use that discount. So nice little bonus there. But enough waffling, let's jump right in, see if this is worth picking up over the other two versions. So here's the packaging you'll get it in, the usual kind of Seestern packaging, or same as a lot of other brands that use these hard cases. So I won't go into detail on this, but you do get a nice little bonus in here. So you get this link removal tool and also a spring bar removal tool as well. So if you haven't got either of them, and this is going to be your first watch, you don't need to worry about that. You've got all the bits you need. And this is what the watch is like itself. So they've got a few different, well, quite a lot of different dial options with this one. This one is one of the new ones. They're calling the Army dial. So you've got the black and the white there. But then if you're not keen on this, they've got plenty of other ones. I'll probably reel through them quickly and show you on screen what they're like. So you've got a dark blue, this Army one, silver, black mother of pearl, a teal, an orange and a yellow. So quite a lot of choice there, so hopefully you should be able to find something you do like. Speaking of which, I'll quickly bring in the V1 that I've got and show you that one. And with that one I've got the yellow. So you can see the dials are quite different in terms of the way they're laid out, because this black and white one's just got a different kind of look, whereas most of the others will look more like this yellow one. So pop that back down for a second, and we'll go over a few bits on this before we do the comparison. So first off, let's go zoom in on that dial. So we've got a fully printed dial, so nothing applied. Got the Seestern branding over there, just slightly to the left at the top, and then down at the bottom on the right, got automatic 200 metre or resistance 660 feet. So they've kept the dial pretty clean, not too cluttered, which I do like. And as I say, with this Army one, I do like the way they've got this laid out with the contrast between the black and the white sections. Something a little bit different, a little bit unique. I'll probably chuck in some macros so you can see a bit better as well. And then you've got a nice bit of colour there with that large orange minute hand, which has got Lume in the centre as well. Then you've got that square on the second hand, and then that smaller hour hand. All nicely proportioned, and again, nicely finished, like a high gloss finish on all of them. And then the orange matching the bezel text around the outside as well. So ties together nicely, and then we've got that date window, which is nicely integrated as well at the 3. So overall, I do really like the way this one's done. I think it works well. So quickly go over a few other bits before we get into the comparison. So we've got a nice beads of rice bracelet, got a signed clasp, fold over, just a friction based clasp, but it is milled, and then we've got a really nice engraved case back with that Seestern on there, and then we've got the usual text around the outside, in fact it's automatic. Got the water resistance, sapphire crystal, because it is sapphire crystal, which is the same as the other version. All of them are sapphire, so that is good. And then we've also got drilled lugs as well, so if you do want to change it for something else you can do easily. We've also got that Seestern on the crown. The branding is nice and consistent, and you can see we've got some nice detail on that bezel as well, so it's nice and grippy. So we'll zoom back out, and then we'll start talking about some of the differences. So that bezel is one of the differences I've noticed. So with this one, it's a really nice clicky bezel, 120 click, rock solid, no issues. And then if I bring in the other one quickly, in comparison with this one, you can probably hear the difference. It's not quite as defined click. It's a little bit lighter, so I think I prefer the newer version, to be honest. But they both work well enough, but the other one just feels a bit firmer. This one feels like you might be able to knock it slightly maybe and it might move, whereas the other one doesn't really have that problem. Another thing you might have noticed is that the newer version, the V3, actually has a Lume pip at the top there, that little white one, whereas the older one, the V1, doesn't. I think the V2 did, but the V1 didn't. So again, that's another one of the differences. So I'll just pop these both down now and talk about some of the other differences I've noticed. So when it comes to the dimensions, they're pretty similar. So we've got 42mm diameter on both, we've got 20mm lugs on both, we've got 45mm lug to lug on both. When it comes to the thickness, these two are actually both 13.5mm, but then when you include that bezel height, that's slightly larger at 13.8. I didn't have the V2, but apparently on the V2, that one was actually a little bit smaller, the bezel height, so it was more or less flush with the crystal. So they've changed back to what they had with the V1 on this V3, so it's slightly higher. So I'll quickly show you what that looks like. And you can see there, we've got a little dip down to get to the crystal from the bezel. It's not completely flat. So that is something they've reverted back to from the version 1 that they changed on the version 2. So as I say, they both have sapphire crystal, but now I'll show you what the Lume's like on both of these. And as you can see, the Lume is really good on both of these. Obviously there's a couple of little subtle differences. So as I pointed out before, the V3 has that Lume pip, whereas the V1 doesn't. So obviously that's a difference. Also, I've noticed whilst testing these two out, that the Lume on the date wheel on the V3 is slightly brighter than the V1. So I think they've got a little bit more on there. So that makes that a little bit better, lasts a little bit longer. When it comes to the rest of the Lume though, they're both great. No issues at all, no patchiness, both got a good amount, both last a good amount of time. So can't really fault either of them on Lume. If I'm being a little bit nitpicky, as I say, the date wheel on this one, the V3, is slightly better, and obviously it has that Lume pip. But you're probably not realistically going to be diving with these, so that's probably not too big a deal. But let me know, is that an issue for you? So another thing that I think might be slightly different is the amount of AR on these two. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to get this to show up on camera, but I think the V3 might have a touch more AR. You can see a ever so slight blue hue on that, whereas the V1 you can't really see that. So I think it's got a touch more AR, but it's not making all that much difference, but it is noticeable if you're looking at them side by side. If you didn't have them side by side, I don't think you'd probably be able to tell. So when it comes to the movements in these, they both got the NH35, both got screw down crowns, so I'll quickly show you that in action. So quickly move those hands out of the way actually. And then pop it out once, change the date, and then obviously you've seen me move the hands. Works just fine. I've also got hacking as well because the second hand stopped. Pop it back in, that re-engages. You've got hand winding. Screw back down. All works well, as you'd expect. No issues at all. So all we'll have to do now is show you what it's like on wrist, and then we'll wrap this up. So this is what it looks like on my 7-inch wrist. And it does wear really nicely. You've got plenty of micro adjust there to get the perfect sizing. And with the bead to rice bracelet, it conforms to wrist really nicely as well. Got that compact lug to lug. Although the case is a little on the flat side, it still wears well. And I just think it's a good looking piece. They've made a few little subtle changes, nothing too major, but I think they add up to definitely make it better than the other versions. So if you are going to pick one of these up, you definitely want to be getting the V3. When it comes to Doxa Homages, I think it's the best one, but let me know down in the comments, what do you think? Are you going to be picking one of these up? Have you already got one? If you have, what do you think of it? But that's it for this one guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.